Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Play the Tape. I am your host, Derek J. Fields. Full disclaimer: we are not licensed or certified clinical therapists, social workers, or drug and alcohol counselors. I do and I will have them on future shows and past shows. But what Play the Tape is a place of advocacy, support for the community, for people who with mental health and substance use challenges, like myself and my guest today. My guest today is my brother. I met him at first time I met him was at a NAMI com- connection support group. And what NAMI is, a National Alliance on Mental Illness. It's a resource for national and regional. Just check it out. Now, in episodes to come, I'm putting together a list of resources that will play after each episode. And I'll even add them back to old past episodes as well. But my guest today is my brother. He is a business owner. He has his own publishing company, Taylor House Publishing. He's an author with books of Brush with Death, The Blood of Jesus, Wrongfully Accused, Rightfully Acquitted, Son of a Preacher Man, Blue Lights in My Rear View. He's an advocate for the community. He's a mentor. He's a man of God. My brother today, Richard Taylor. How you doing? How you doing?
Man, thank you so much, Mr. Derek. Certainly a pleasure to be on this show. Thank you for having me. Definitely an honor, and I thank you for what you're doing and bringing awareness to people who are, experiencing these challenges that many of us go through, but not many of us are willing to talk about. So I definitely want to commend you on your endeavor as well.
I thank you. It's a God. I give honor and glory to God. I just do. That's just who I am, and Jesus Christ. That's just where I'm at. Um, I'm very thankful for you being up here, and as especially us as Black men, we don't get an opportunity, or in our community, it's not taught to us or expressed to us that it's okay not to be okay, and it's okay to reach out for help when you need it safely for someone that you trust. And I thank you for doing this as well with everything that you got going on in your life. So blessings to you and yours. But without further ado, Richard Taylor, your floor is yours.
Okay. Well, a little, about my upbringing. I always start, where it all started. I was born in Goldsboro, North Carolina. I was the last of three children, two older sisters. So, as people say, I was the baby, quote unquote. And my mother and father, I grew up in the prototypical household. I had two parents. They're actually still married today. They're going on 50 years in July. So I came up in definitely, yeah, and glory be to God. I came up in a two-parent household, a God-fearing household. My father was a minister by the time I was born. So we grew up in a holiness church. Now, anybody knows what holiness is? We were in church for a long time, every day of the week. Sunday,
Mm-hmm.
Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday night, and that was the upbringing, that I had. So I grew up with a lot of morals, a lot of values, very, very, very love. I didn't feel, any my father and mother, they were home every night, no fussing and arguing, no. And everything was, looking back, I realized how blessed I was as a child. Very, very strict. However, with the holiness background, we couldn't do a lot of things that other children did. Go to movies, go to dances, do things like that, go to skating rink. But, we did do other things. And, our church family was very, very prolific in my upbringing. And so as I got older, I was very intelligent, very one of the thanks to God, one of the smartest people in my class. The academically gifted classes and whatnot. So I grew up, very very good in athletics as well. So typical all American story of a of a great potential, great the ceiling, the sky was the limit for me. Now, as I became older, about 12, 11, I began to uh, get with some of the older, my older, once again, they were family. They were in the church as well. So these were the guys I looked up to in the church. But that time, they were about 15, 16, and they had already started being influenced, by some of their peers who weren't in the church. So, they would be drinking and smoking. And those were the only people I could go over their houses. So when I started going over their houses and they were doing those things. So, of course, those were my big brothers. Those were people I looked up to. And then, I think it was about 12. Actually, the first time I ever smoked a joint, it was after church with my older god brother. He was about 15. He had already started dibbling and dabbling in the streets. He didn't come to church that day, but after church, he came to get me, and we walked across the street to the park, and we smoked our first joint. Well, I smoked it was my first joint, and I was like, I was really, it was it made me feel very, very good. Like I was laughing, I was giggling, and that, and I knew that was something that I was going to do again. And the
Mm-hmm.
same thing with beer. About the same summer, we got with him and some other friends, and we went and got some Silver Thunders. I never forget it. Silver Thunders from the corner store. It was about six guys. Each one of us had one, and when I drunk that, and it tasted nasty, and I didn't like it, but after a while, I liked the feeling that it gave me. So that started out as my foray into substance and alcohol abuse. Now, mind you, once again, I was 12 years old. I was still going to the boys' club, still playing sports. But what I found out around that age, a lot of the children in my neighborhood, which was a middle class neighborhood, started smoking weed and getting drunk, and it got to a point, by the time we got in high school, that every day before school, we would either get drunk or high. We would go ahead.
No, it was because it was a to do. It was an event to do. Right. Because you're still good guy, good child, good student. There really isn't any trauma there just yet growing up. So it was just an event. It was a something to do. It was hanging out, being cool, I like the feeling, right? So far.
Yeah, that's what it basically was. It was trying to be cool. Like the older guys were doing it. A lot of the kids who didn't come from my background, they were doing it, and so I started, hanging with them, and and that became a common bond, like a bonding point throughout without all the students. So you smoke. Okay, we smoking every day
Yep.
at lunch,
Mm-hmm.
at and once again, it became. Uh, I always tell people we started doing it before everything we did. Like if we was on the basketball team, me and my guy who smoked on the basketball team, we would go get high and drunk before the basketball games or the football games, or if there's a dance, we getting high, we go to the dance, or if there's a movie or we're meeting some girls, it had to be. It started out as an enhancement. Now,
Mm-hmm.
around about that time, 15 or 16, I always give credit, to the musical climate or the social climate doing that. Now, this was in the early to mid '90s, so this was the onset of gangster rap, or groups like Snoop Dogg, Mobb Deep, Jay Z, even Biggie Smalls, Tupac, where they started to present this lifestyle through
Mm-hmm.
rap videos. They started to present it and make it seem like, yeah, this is what you need to be doing. This is what the cool guys do. We smoke weed, we sell drugs, we tote guns, we have sex with a lot of women.
And
So
we're successful.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We're successful. We got a lot of money. So
Right.
how else do you do that but sell drugs? Now, mind you, I'm from a two-parent home. I don't want for anything. But what I found myself doing is I started seeing some of my counterparts coming to high school with pockets full of money, weed, selling weed, and they're grown. They have freedom, they have independence. I said, okay, I want that. So I started mingling with them. I started learning the game, and by the time I was like 16 or 17, I was out on the block, selling crack with everybody else. Now, mind you, it was sort of a breaking point, because of course my parents didn't know at the beginning when, I would start coming home and my mother would ask, why are your eyes so red? Why are your eyes so red? And then I would just go to my room. But, she would smell it and things like that. Then I started to get in trouble with the law about 16 or 17, little resisting arrest, possession of marijuana. So there was like this thing like, hey, what are you doing? We went through that point whereas I realized that I always tell people too, I realized that I couldn't get any more whoopings. Like I was too big for whippings. And so, it there wasn't any more, it wasn't nothing I was scared of anymore. So
Right.
yeah, I'm grown and I tell everybody too, this is another thing. When I was 17, I lost my virginity. And so after I did that, no one could tell me nothing. I was a man now. I was a man. I got me some. I know how to sell drugs. I got me about $500 or $600 in my pocket. And so um that's really got me into the quote unquote street life. And when I was 18, of course, we had a rule in my house where you had to go to college. And because I was still smart academically, I made like one of the highest scores on the SAT.
Mm.
I had letters from Duke, Harvard, MIT, Yale, Brown, like every university in every major university. I had two shoeboxes full of offers, but by then my mind was on the streets. Like,
Right.
and I had started making a little money too. Like, by that time I had about $3,000 or $4,000 saved up, which I thought was a lot of money back then, and maybe it was for an 18-year-old.
Yeah.
And so I reached into a box and I said, okay, well, this is a black college, and I chose Central. I chose
Mm-hmm.
North Carolina Central University. And by the time that I did go to college, one of my best friends that I was with every day, fortunately for me that I had to work that night. I had an overnight job, but he committed a murder. And I know if I wasn't working, that night I would have been with him. But he committed a murder, and he got into we and that sent us into a spiral where we were in shootouts literally about every other week with this other guy's family and friends. And just once again, just by the grace of God, I survived that summer of 1996.
That's did was that was the summer before you went to college. So you had already decided to go to Central, but y'all was still in that type of environment situation during that summertime. Did that push you towards, okay, I need to go to college. I need to get out of here? Because was there a moment of clarity at that moment through those shootouts where you were like, dang, Richard, I need to go to college. I need to get away from this environment and do something a little bit better. This is too much for me.
Actually, it had the opposite effect. Because once again, in that climate, 96, and then once again, that was after Tupac got shot 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so it actually solidified me as I'm really a thug. Like I'm really living this life. So it actually gave me extra ammo to wake up every morning, get with him, and ride around with our guns. Like, okay, when we see him, it's on. But in hindsight, of course, it was pure foolishness. And that next summer, he actually got convicted and got sentenced to 16 years for that murder. But no, it actually had the opposite effect on me, as in, okay, I'm really bad now. And so actually, I didn't really want to go to college because once again, I had finally established my little network of customers and clients, and I'm thinking I got it all figured out. And I was truly mad that I had to leave.
Mm.
And but however, being the entrepreneurial spirit, that I had, if you call it entrepreneurship, instead of us, I said, okay, well, I'm going to college. I know there's not many crackheads on the college campus. That's what I was saying. So I said, okay, well, I'm going to take 2 pounds of marijuana and set myself up as the weed man at school. And
Mm-hmm.
as soon as I got there, I advertised it. I knew a little people from back home, and before you know it, I was the weed man. I was the weed man on campus. I was, of course, amongst a lot of other weed men, but I established a reputation for myself as having marijuana and being a nice, fun party guy. And that lasted until the end of the first semester. And at the end of the first semester, I was lured. My regular Weed Connect didn't have any, so I was lured by another guy who I used to gamble with, and I used to win all of his money, so he had some animosity to me. I was lured to off campus to this building where I was supposed to be buying a half pound of weed. But when we got to the building, a guy comes out and he pulls the pistol. Pulls me around the back of the building. He shoots me in the back, well in the back of my shoulder right here, and he starts stripping me. Luckily I took all my jewelry off, but so because he was looking for jewelry, the guy had already told him, who I was, and so basically he robbed me for like $450, which was not a lot. He took my jacket, took my shoes, but he shot me. He shot me. First off, like when he shot me, I was like, okay, yeah, the money's in the gold box.
Right, right,
Praying. I'm talking about, Father, forgive me.
right.
I didn't know what was next. So, and when I was praying, that's what really let me know that God is real. Because when I was praying, He just kept telling me, "Shut up, shut up, shut up," because that prayer was getting to him. That prayer was so on. But He let me go. And I went to the hospital. The bullet went straight through, so I didn't have any major injuries. And once again, it had the opposite effect.
I was just about to ask. I was about to say, getting shot at 18 at the end of the first semester, getting stripped down, getting taken for 450, still understanding how God is moving in your life. Opposite effect.
Opposite effect. Because
Opposite effect.
now I'm really solidified. Oh, he got shot. I come back on campus with my arm in the sling. All the girls, hey, what happened to you? Yeah, I got shot. Oh, can I see it?
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, well, yeah, this ain't so bad after all. You know what I'm saying? And I couldn't wait to come back. To come back to Goldsboro because everybody heard. And Goldsboro, once again, is a small town, about
Yes.
50,000 people, so everybody knows everybody. So
Right.
once again, that was sort of a celebrity. I went back home with the to the high school football game, my chain hanging, more. So once again, it was like, okay, well, I'm really a thug. So
What did mom and dad have to say? Because they had to see that.
yeah, my mom and dad, they came up to Durham that same day. They, of course, they prayed, and but by then it was at the point where there was nothing they could do but pray.
Okay.
Because there was no talking to me. All the talking had been done, and that so they literally had my back in every turn. But they realized, okay, I would have to learn for myself. And at the end of that semester, of course, I was going to class then. But when the next semester started, I stopped going to class. I was just drinking and smoking all day, gambling in my dorm. I just really turned. I was like, okay, well, now I'm not. I'm not going to class anymore. This is not for me anyway, because I just wanted to be a hustler. And so by the end of that summer, just 1 year, when my grades come back, I'm at home. My parents, they get my grades, and they're like, "What? You're not, what are you? You're not going back, thank you. I didn't want to go back." So um, then mind you, now I'm 19. I'm just hanging around Goldsboro. I ended up just getting into to a lot of stuff. I got about 3 DWIs. I got 2 robbery charges. One robbery charge stemmed from a car game. I was arrested. They locked me up with about $150,000 bond, and I sat in there for about 2 months until they dropped it to 10,000, which my parents was able to get me out. And when they got me out, I just still start hanging around the neighborhood again. That charge eventually got dropped. The guy, it really was a lie, but the guy didn't come to court. And then I messed around and got another common law robbery charge trying to rob a pizza man. And I was just going down a spiral until at the age of 21 on my third DWI,
Mm-hmm.
they finally gave me a year in prison. Now, with that year in prison, I mean, when the judge gave me that, I went back to that jail cell and just laid on the bed and cried. I was like, Lord, a year. And so then a older guy came to my bunk. He was like, "What's wrong?" I was like, "Man, I got a year." He said, "You got a year?" Well, and, of course, that's probably nothing to him, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so he said, "Well, a year for what?" I got DWI. He said, "DWI? Oh, that's the old law. That's a misdemeanor. So if they gave you a year, you really only got 6 months. And if you do good with good time, you'll be out in 4 months." And I said, "Huh?" So I
That
was
was
like,
God working then too.
"What? Yes."
You see what I'm saying?
So,
Yeah. Wow. Okay. That was good. I just be when I hear people's stories and their testimonies, I listen for the because we all have them that time where we look back and be like, man, God was intervening then. He boy was a lawyer.
oh yeah, yeah. And so I started doing that 3 months, but also I had a hit and run as
Mm-hmm.
well. Now that was a felony. And when I went to court for that, I was still in jail, prison. And so my lawyer said, "Hey, well, you got this right here. They're only going to give you 4 months. If you accept this 4 months, you already, you got 2 months left on this sentence. So if they'll start this 4 months now, so it'll run concurrent with the sentence you're already doing. And so really, you just only have to do an extra 2 months than you're doing anyway." So I was like, "Bet, like let's get it over with." But
Right.
I didn't know the ramifications of that felony status that would have. Now, so I went on and took it, and then of course when I got out, I was a convicted felon. And I got out when I was 21. It was the beginning. It was right around the time. It was 2 months before Y2K. So the Y2K scare everybody. Oh, the world's going to end, and this, that, and the other, and everybody's anticipating. And that was the party time for me. So for about the next 2 years, once again, I stayed around Goldsboro, and by this time, I started using cocaine regularly. I first used cocaine when I was 18. When I was really, starting to get money in Goldsboro, I used it recreationally. And then when I came home from college and during that time before I went to prison and after I got to prison, I would use it recreationally. I would be around gambling, just drinking, going to different liquor houses. I don't know what y'all call them in Greenville, but those are
ABC. ABC.
not the liquor houses, like where you
Oh.
body house and they
Oh.
got liquor and you
Liquor
buy.
house. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Some people call them shot houses,
Shot
whatever.
houses. Yeah. But mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I would just be around, just literally getting into nothing until one night. And this was like 2002 when I was at a liquor house and a shootout happened, right? And during the shootout, I knew the people, they weren't shooting at me, but just so many bullets were flying. I ducked behind the car and I could literally hear the bullets. Phew, 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 like passing by my ear. And I'm like, I went home that night and I said, I gotta get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
Gotta get out of here. And that was like Thanksgiving weekend. And I had a brother, Terrence Thornton, who stayed in Virginia Beach. And he was about a year older than me. He had went to college, went the straight and narrow way. And he he was home for the holidays, and I just called him, and he would all because he had been through with me. He had tried to, my parents tried to get him to talk to me. He took me up to Elizabeth City one time. He would come and check on me because my parents, they didn't know how to reach me, so they would try to get friends, who were on the right path. So
Right.
this one day I said, man, I got to get out of here, man. Can I go back with you? He said, come on. I
How old were you then? How old were you?
I was 23.
Okay.
I was 23, and I packed up a trash bag full of clothes. I think my mama gave me $50 and my daddy gave me $50. So I had a trash bag full of clothes and $100, and I moved to Virginia Beach. And that's when my life changed drastically, for the better, but also for the worse. For the better because I learned how to be an independent man. You know, my god brother, he said, look, you got a month. Like you can stay here for a month for free, but next month I'm gonna need this on the bills. I'm gonna need this on the rent. And I accepted that. And so in Virginia Beach, coming from Goldsboro, I just thought I was in the biggest city. So I went out. I got me a job at the shipyard. I got a job at the 7-Eleven, and I started working and saving money. And I was like, okay, I can, and coming from Gold, like nobody knew me, so I could
Right.
actually be who I am, like who God made me to be. So I was a nerd. So I would go to the library on my day off and just go get books and read books and things like that. And so I was really getting into myself. Of course, now he smoked weed and drunk beer, so I started doing that, but there wasn't any cocaine use, which was good. And I wouldn't say I was bad off of cocaine, but I knew it wasn't a healthy drug for me. And so things went good for I would say about 6 or 7 months until I got this job at Ticketmaster. And now Ticketmaster is a big call center. You got everybody from high school students to college students to grown people, everybody in this one center, girls, summertime, everybody smoking weed, this, that, and the other. So I'm meeting a lot of people, and I start meeting people and smoking with people, and I'm starting to hear things. I'm like, what? You pay this much for an ounce of weed? You pay this much for a quarter. So I'm thinking in my mind, I'm like, they paying way too much. I
Mm-hmm.
know I can get it. And so that manifested into me buying a quarter pound of weed, which is 4 ounces. And then I started selling that at work. Next thing you know, I was buying a pound. Then I was buying 2 pounds. The next thing you know, I was the weed man at the job and in my neighborhood.
So that cycle continued just like how you was on your first semester at college on campus.
Exactly, right? You know what I'm saying? And I once again, the devil once again had a setup, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so by that, now I quit the job. I'm making so much money selling weed. Why am I getting up for this job every morning? I got customers who calling me, from morning to night. So I'm selling weed. My godbrother say, look, I just don't have nobody come to the house. I'm cool. Because once again he smoked and stuff, and he worked for the Boy Scouts, and his brother was a major hustler back home, so he understood. So he didn't. And plus, by that, and then I told him, I said, look, don't worry about it. I pay all the bills. I started making that much money. It's just to make him feel comfortable about it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So that went on. I met some local cats. Started rolling dice with them. Started getting into the local scene, going to clubs, and then one of my customers introduced me to a customer who wanted to buy some weed, but he also was a cocaine dealer. Like he was one of the a big time cocaine dealer. So he wanted to buy weed first. And then so when he started buying weed, he started talking about, I sell coke. I said, oh yeah. And I said, okay. So I started buying a little bit of coke to use from him, right? And during that, I started developing a habit, but also he was like, shoot, man, you keep buying these grams, you should go ahead and get you a quarter or half an ounce. And,
Yep. Yep.
start flipping. And what do you know? I said, well, you right, because that way I can get my high and sell it. And so when I'm selling my weed, I'm telling my weed customers, look, I got some powder now. I got powder now. And they like, okay. Next thing you know it, everybody wants powder. People still want the weed, but weed is, as they say, slow money. Powder is fast money. And so it got to a point where once again I started buying an ounce or two or three of powder, 4 ounces, and next thing you know, I'm like, forget that weed. I got now I'm just the coke man.
Right.
And now, being that I had so much of it, I would use every day, or I would try not to use every day. But it got to the point where, in the hindsight, I realized, okay, yeah, I was addicted, But I'm using. Okay, well, I got girls coming over, they getting high. I'm selling it. I'm getting high with friends, like people who buy it might buy it from me. Hey, you want to do a line with me? So I'm doing their coke, but that just gets me going because when they go home, I'm still jonesing for us. But I
Right.
got the big bag. So then next thing you know, the next day I say, okay, I'm not using any coke. But somebody calls me for it, and I have to open up this big bag, and it's right in front of me, and I might make the first 3 or 4 sales without using it. But it's only so much time that you can open up that bag, and it's smelling good, and you're foaming at the mouth, and sooner or later, and I hit it, and then the cycle starts all over again. In which I would be up for 3 or 4 days because I had it. It didn't never go away. I didn't, and then I would say, okay, well I'm about to go to sleep. Then my phone will ring. Somebody who won't coke, might be a girl leaving. She'll come over. We'll get high. We'll have sex, and that started that constant cycle, and that led me to a point where it got so bad. Traffic was getting so bad at the house that my god brother, he actually, he moved out. He moved with his girlfriend, which I understood because
Mm-hmm.
by that time things had gotten in the hand. I started having dice games at the house, having people coming to the house. So he realized, okay, well, now this, and he realized, okay, he couldn't control it neither. It had already gotten out. I had become, even though I was paying the bills, it wasn't worth it.
Right.
The trauma, the girls bamming on the window, the arguments with the females because I'm high and drunk and I haven't been to sleep for 3 days and I'm cussing them out and they want some more coke and I'm like, no, you can't get no more. Get out, leave. And I had a couple of run-ins with the law, domestic disputes. I beat up somebody who had forgot to give me their money when they got the drugs. So the police came and they arrested me with weed. So there was a lot of things that started to spiral.
How long of a period you say that was?
I would say all of that what I mentioned, like from me moving up there until where we at now is about 2 years.
Okay.
2 years. By 2 years time, my god brother had moved out. I had started running with these guys, and it got to a point where, as the people I was running with, they was getting kind of grimy. They were starting to rob each other and stuff. So I said, okay, I got to move. So I left downtown Virginia Beach and moved to the ocean front, which is like right by the water, right by the beach. I moved there. I said, okay, I'm going to get a new start. Of course, I still had all my customers, and I sat, and I got a 1 bedroom apartment at the beach, and I maintained that for about 3 months. Like I said, I'm not going to talk to nobody. I'm not going to call none of these old guys or was some of my old new friends or whatever because once they were leeches too. Some of them got high.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't want to be around me. Some of them liked me because I gambled and I would lose money because I didn't care because I was making so much money. So the money I would lose was a lot to them, but it wasn't nothing to me. So they would just hang on for that. And so I realized, I said, okay, look, no, I'm really and all of this while though, once again, I'm still praying to God, because there are certain nights that I'll be up 3 or 4 days and I get on my knees and like God, I don't want to live like this. I can't keep going, Lord. Help me to stop, help me to quit. But then of course, now I will even wake up some Sundays and go to church and go to the altar and snot and cry and all of that stuff. But then I would get back home and I have this big bag of cocaine.
Mm-hmm.
I have these people calling me, have this girl, I have these expenses. So, it was a a never ending battle until I started, once again, then I started doing the same thing at the ocean front that I did at my other uh downtown house, which was hosting dice games, allowing any and everybody to come, throwing coke parties and things like that. And that just morphed into um my apartment getting broken into twice for probably from somebody I know, and just once again just a lot of traffic. Um, the people I used a fellow user to put the apartment in his name. So when the apartment kept getting broke into, they realized, okay, he's not staying there. So I had to move from there. Now this time, and that lasted about a year.
Mm-hmm.
This time I moved right around the corner to these nice condos. And I said, okay, this time I am going to straighten up. Like I'm going to straighten up now. I'm gonna do something else. And at this point, what I did was I said I'm going to real estate school because one of my customers was a older white lady. She was a real estate broker, and when she would come and buy her cocaine, she would tell me, "You should do real estate. You'll be good at real estate, and you'll make a lot of money with this." Well, she was talking about the cocaine, and that's once again that's how
that's the trap. Yep.
it's crazy. I'm trying to get out the game, and she
Yep.
told me, "No, bring this to the real estate game." Like it's, and so I'm just totally confused. And so I said, okay, well, I take the real estate course. This I would say this is the end of this is probably the end of the third year, the second year. I take the real estate course, um, and I apply for the license, but they denied me because I was a felon. Um, and So I had to go before the board, had to go a bunch of hearings, but they finally gave me those. They finally gave me the license, the real estate license. So at that point in time, I had moved a cousin up with me from Goldsboro because he was kind of going through the same thing I was going through. I let him stay with me. I'm showing him, look, okay, this is what I'm doing, but I'm trying to get out, bro. But I would give him little drugs to sell. I would let him buy some weed, and he could sell the weed. And it got to a point where he still wanted to get high too, and I did too. But there's certain days that I didn't. And then I can blame him all I want to, but I still held the card. So he
Mm-hmm.
was getting high, and then I was like, okay, forget it, let's get high. And it was just a never-ending cycle until one day, I I. I just felt like it wasn't a good fit, and I kind of said some things to him, and he kind of left that same day. And but we're cool now because I think we both realized that wasn't that wasn't a good position for both of us to be in. We were kind of enabling each other, to get high every night. But long story short, um, I started selling real estate. I got my real estate license, but I was still selling cocaine. And then so one day this guy was at my real estate office. This guy kept calling me and calling me and calling me for cocaine. And I'm like, this guy's calling me too much. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna come see you when I get off. Come see you when I get off. And so that day when I got off, I went home and changed clothes, got the amount of cocaine the guy said he wanted. And when I got there, I got in the car, pulled out my scale, and I was about to lay the cocaine on the scale, and then the guy pulled out a gun. And the guy pulled out a gun, and when I seen the gun, it was just everything in slow motion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh man! So I instantly reached for my door handle of my car to try to get out, but he grabbed me and he starts hitting me with the gun. Right, hit me in the face with the gun, and then he stopped. And then so I tried to get out again. He hit me in the face with the gun again and stopped. So after the second time he stopped, I got out. It's just like okay, he just gave up, and so I got out of the car. He took the car and drove off, and of course, I had to report my car stolen. They found the car, a while about 2 or 3 days later, and that was really the point where I said, okay,
Enough is enough.
I got to get out. No, I said enough was enough, but once again, it wasn't enough because
Right.
about a week later, I had a dice game at my house. And the guy I normally shoot with this guy, but he brought another guy who's always with him as well, but he never shoots. So we were shooting, and I won the money from the guy, and the guy walked out of the house. And then the guy he was with, he was like, "Hey, hold up, man. Let me get a drink. I'll take that drink." So I went back and fixed him a drink. And then when he turned around, he pulled out a gun on me, and he was like, "Give it up." So by this time, though, he's in my house. I'm closer to the door, so I just run out the door, and he was like, "Don't run, don't run. I'm gonna shoot you." So I kind of ran out the house, and he ran out my door and got in the car with the other guy, and they drove off. And that's when I really said, "Okay, I can't, I
So
can't." Uh huh.
we got 20 minutes, and I want to get to your. That was the point where you had to sit down with yourself, take a look inside, and be like, okay, Richard, there's got to be something better. I have survived a lot of situations that I'm not supposed to survive. When did the recovery, when did a change, a significant change uh, had to occur?
Okay, so yeah, we're gonna fast forward. So that change happened. I started working, started doing some things. But I still had a drug habit. So I
What,
think
how old were you when at that point?
this was about 28,
Okay.
about 20. So from 28 to 30, I was working at this telemarketing company. I was doing good. But once again, every night I would go home and buy cocaine. I wasn't selling cocaine, but so I was making about $1,000, $1,300 a week. But by the next week, I would probably have $200 because every night I wasn't selling it, but all of that selling and all of that, it had developed a habit. I
Mm-hmm.
developed a habit. So long story short, I lost that job. My child's mother at the time was pregnant, and the only way I knew how to get money that fast was to embark back on my drug dealing again. So um, it was 2008. I think I was about 30, and my daughter was going to be born about 5 months. 5 months. So
Mm-hmm.
long story short, to keep because I know we went on our time. I got back in the game, and I knew when I did it, I was signing almost a death warrant. And so 6 months later, when my daughter was 3 months, I was at a hotel and with a female acquaintance, and she knew I had money and drugs on me, and she pulled out a gun and she shot me 3 times at close range while I was holding my 3-month-old daughter.
Ooh.
And now that that was the really because now mind you once again God had his hand on me because I was able to walk out the hospital
Amen.
that next day, but that's when I said, okay, I'm moving back to North Carolina. I'm getting back in the church. And and I am going to figure out how and why that this little kid who loved drums and loved church and loved poetry, how did I get to this point where I almost get me and my daughter killed? And so that was the beginning of my transformation, and that's what started me like literally to writing, my first book, which was Brushes with Death, the Blood of Jesus. Um, and I was home praying. I got back into the church. I was home praying, and I was reading the Bible, and I heard something say right, and so I was looking at the scripture, so I never forget. I was in John 14,
Mm-hmm.
and so I started writing the scriptures, like translating what I got from those scriptures, and then I heard something clear as day say, "No, write your life." And so that's when I got on the computer and I started writing in third person, and that's how Brushes with Death, the Blood of Jesus, came about because I had so many brushes with death that I knew that it was only God who had given
Intervene.
those things. So that
Yeah.
that was
That no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no. You go ahead.
Um, like we had talked about off air and on air for a little bit. We're going to next time you come because I want to have you back because there's a lot of stuff that needs to be told in your testimony. I just wanted to get to that recovery part first because your origin and your backstory has a lot of meat to it, and we still got a lot of meat left when it comes to your writing, the
Uh-huh.
different books you have. You got 6 books that we're going to take a deep dive into all of them next time you come back on. And we're going to take a deep dive into how you had to transform your life because you knew where God wanted you to be. You were learning and you had to make a change for better for you, not only for yourself, but for your family. And is that where the books came from? Is that where the publishing company came from? Is that spirit of entrepreneurship that you had, just in a different lane at that time, still developing those skills, now being a mentor? Because
Yeah.
don't you have an engagement to do after this with some
Yeah, yeah,
youth?
yeah. We got a community rally for gun violence, which once again I've been a victim of gun violence myself, and so I realize now that in hindsight, that everything that I went through, that God took me through, was so I can minister unto someone else, whether it's in the prison, like I speak at the prison system. So whether it's in the prison, whether it's with these young guys, whether it's people dealing with substance abuse, whether it's mental health, whether it's homelessness, whether it's financial problems, whether it's health problems. I've had a stroke and a brain aneurysm. We ain't get to that yet. But it's just so many things that I realize now that God was preparing me for. And the books were just an avenue. Like, and I realize that now too, because when I tell people I wrote books, they buy the books, but they also want to once again hear the stories. How did this book come about? Oh, what happened? You were wrongfully accused of what? But that also gives me an avenue to witness as well. I recently became ordained in October of last year. So, as an ordained minister, a lot of people, and I've learned, like when I go to the prison, like people want to know that you've been through some things, that you
Yes,
relate to where they are.
absolutely.
I think that's why God allowed me to go through all of those things, and keep me, first of all, and keep me.
Mm-hmm.
He knew that one day that he had equipped me with those gifts of writing, with those gifts of speaking, with those gifts of, relating to others, that I will be able to, you know, portray or relate those experiences to others and help them either avoid those experiences or help guide people out of those experiences or help people after they have already been out of those experiences. So I try to get it on all levels. Like I do the kids right now, I do the guys in prison, and I help guys coming out of prison. So
I always ask, well, I'm trying to always ask, it's a question that I'm trying to incorporate, because I get it too when I speak, when I go do H&Is, or go to the detention center, or if I go to church or wherever people want me to speak. I always get the question of, was it was it worth it? Are you grateful? Do you regret? And I'm like, yes, all of it. I do have regrets. It is worth it. And I am thankful
I like
because, yeah. And I want to ask you that. And you kind of answered it, but are you grateful? Are you thankful? And are there regrets that the path God had to take you to get you to be the Richard Taylor in front of us today?
Nah, and I wouldn't take anything, now, because I see the benefits of people, seeing the transformation first of all, but also being a light to others. Like I get calls all the time of, helping people. People know that I have a passion, but also people know I've experienced. Like people who their child is in jail about a court case, and they know I've been through some things. Well, is this right? Well, could you talk to him? Well, my lawyer is not doing it. So those are the things that allows me to say, yes, Lord. I know why you took me through it. But there's one thing, but then there's also that, and like once again, I don't have any regrets, but there also is a what if. Like, what if I would have went to Harvard
Right.
or Duke? What if I'd have just stayed on the straight and narrow and, just went down that path? I don't, and I don't think I would want that life. To be honest, like I would take my life now
Yeah.
rather than that hypothetical what if life.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. Like I don't think I would trade it. Even though now, like I'm not where I want to be. I know God is still taking me places, and He's
Right.
showing me things where I am going to be.
But
And
there's joy. But there's joy. You have joy. I see it in. I
yeah.
see it in. I feel the joy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. And somebody always told me as well. I just learned this success isn't the destination. Success is the journey. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, I want the house, and I don't even know if I want the house on the hills. Like, I'm literally good in this 2 bedroom apartment right in the middle of what some would call the hood, but I call it, a neighborhood because I'm right amongst the people, that I like to help, and I like to be an example too. But of course everyone wants the big house
Yeah.
and but I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Because it's just me. Like maybe if I get married, like I said, I know you're married, so I know that with the wife wants something. I guess you got to get it. So
We on the same page, me and my wife. Absolutely.
uh,
Yes.
so that's good. So but yeah, man. I don't like I said I don't regret it, but I think that God has placed me in a position right now for a time such as this because that we as a community, like you mentioned before, as black men,
Mm-hmm.
as black boys, we have a lot of issues in our community that is because we don't know who we are, or we don't value ourselves, or we don't have we haven't had the correct guidance to navigate through this crazy world that throws all types of things at you. And like you said, sometimes we just want to escape. We just want to do those things that are familiar instead of facing this harsh reality. So I want to continue to be that light and that inspiration for people.
And I think and I know that you will. I know God will continuously bless you in everything that you put your hands into, and your heart and your mind into, and your spirit. Um, we got like 4 minutes left. Where can people find you, your books, your publishing company? Where can they find Richard Taylor?
Okay, well now I'm on of course all of the social media platforms, Facebook, Richard Taylor, Taylor House Publishing. You can go to Instagram, Rich True Life, but also you can go to my website, which is www.taylorhousepublishing.com. And there you can find all of my books, my speaking engagements, the work I've done in the community, the things we have planned. And I am not one who is indirect. So like, if you want to get directly in contact with me, you can dial my number at 919-587-7782, or email me at taylorpublishinghouse@gmail.com.
I love that. I love that. I love the transparency. I love the vulnerability. I love the, hey, I'm here. I'm not scared. I'm not shamed, and I'm not running. I know what God has done for me, and I'm here to put that on display. And I want to say kudos to you. I love you, brother. Everything that you're doing. And I thank you again for being up here, Mr. Richard Taylor. I really, really do. I got to have you back. I really want you to come back because we got to get more into your books. We got to get more into everything that we didn't get to. And because I really want to take a deep dive into these books. So I'm definitely going to buy the Brushes with Death, the Blood of Jesus Christ, because that I can definitely relate to that. We're going to talk about all of them, but that is your first one. That's the first one I'm going to get. That's the first one I'm going to read. And we're going to take some chapters and some quotes and see what the man was thinking, or what God gave you to express, to use you. So I'm excited. I'm excited.
Thank you so much for having me, brother. And I definitely enjoyed myself. I love your platform. I love the setup. You are definitely a great host. Great, just great intuition, man. And I'm looking forward to the next time, but I'm also looking forward, to seeing the other videos that you have in the archive. So just keep me abreast on the release. And once again, much success in your endeavors as well.
Thank you. And I will. I keep all my guests. The date is hopefully August. That's what we're looking forward to start season one. So I definitely will let you know when the first episode drops, and when yours is dropped as well, when it's published as well. And thank you. I give all glory, honor to the Most High, to God. I take no credit. This is something just like yourself. He put in me to be a vessel to use for the community, to let people know that you go through trials and tribulations, you go through trauma, you go through mental health, you go through addiction, whatever you go through, God can use you and put you on the other side. Just look at us. Miracles right here. So I thank you again, brother. I love you. Until next time. Peace.
Peace, peace.
Listen, folks, listen, it was a great day. It was a great interview. Every day is going to be challenges. Every day is going to have trials and tribulations. Every day is going to have ups and downs, but every day is a success. Every day that you can learn to be better, to move forward with the grace of God, with your support system, with your community. Listen, with peace comes understanding. With understanding comes love. With love comes hope. And with hope comes faith. And with that faith comes recovery. If no one has not told you today they love you, I love you. We love you. You're not alone. There are people out here that will jump down in that pit with you. And you like, why? Because we know the way out. And that's what it's about. Paying it forward. Being a light, like my brother said, being a beacon of hope. And that's what we are. We love you. We love you. Until next time. Peace.